New today, SunGas Renewables has officially halted development of the Beaver Lake Biofuels Project near Pineville. The multi-billion-dollar project was expected to bring hundreds of jobs and a major economic boost to central Louisiana. Today, I spoke with the executive director of the Louisiana Forestry Association, who says the impact of losing the project will be felt across the region.
The loss is in many terms, and we have been very disheartened by the decision to pull the project from the Pineville area.
On Friday, SunGas Renewables announced it was ending plans for the Beaver Lake project. The company cited several reasons for its decision, including slower than expected adoption of low carbon methanol, uncertainty surrounding carbon capture and storage, and challenges securing financing.
For $2.5 billion, we can't have a project with such uncertainty with it. So the board decided, and now we have to live with their decision.
Buck Vandersteen, executive director of the Louisiana Forestry Association, says state officials estimated the project would have created about 400 direct jobs and another 1,000 indirect jobs. Those positions were expected to pay between $75,000 and $95,000 a year. The facility also would have produced up to 500,000 metric tons of green methanol annually. Now Vandersteen says he's concerned about the future of Louisiana's logging industry.
They're not like you and I, where we get paid a salary. Loggers get paid on production, and if they're not producing, they're obviously not making money. And without Beaver Lake, they cannot produce sustainably to keep in business. And I suspect that we will see more loggers drop out of our business because they just can't afford to stay in.
Last week, the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality held a public hearing on the project.
It is not sustainable economic development. It is a hoax. And it's built on a hoax.
Much of the discussion focused on the proposed carbon capture component. After news broke that the Beaver Lake project was not moving forward, we spoke with Mark Guillory from Save My Louisiana.
We want economic development that produces products that people can actually use, not toxic waste, and then bury it under our feet.
Vandersteen says local opposition was not the primary reason the project was scrapped.
Opposition to the project certainly didn't help, but it was not the major. It was not the major reason that Beaver Lake pulled out.
Despite the setback, Vandersteen says industry leaders are already looking ahead to what could come next for the former International Paper Mill site.
We are not defeated. We're just continuing to look at other projects now that we hope will utilize that site. It's an ideal site.
We also reached out to Pineville Mayor Joe Bishop on the announcement. He told us, although the Beaver Lake project is located outside Pineville city limits, we recognize the potential impact it held for our region. Pineville remains fully committed to fostering business investment and building partnerships that drive economic growth for our citizens and the broader central Louisiana community. You can find a full breakdown of this story on the KALB website.